Today we're with Derek Ingram, Canada's national golf coach, and our colleague Ryan Groves from Body Track. So, Derek, I've known you a long time. I just have to ask you a question. Can you share with us your role at Team Canada Golf?
Well, I'm the head coach for our national amateur team and our young pro squad with Golf Canada. And, so I'm in charge of leading our young amateurs to the next level, hopefully for professional golf, and then, transitioning our best amateurs and our best professionals to ultimately the PGA Tour. That's really my role.
Now, Canada's really approached this differently than say the United States. It seems to me, anyways. I remember when the RCGA approached me about 15 years ago. Major golf corporations putting in money towards pooling towards with the goal of having, 10 in the top 100 touring pros in the world men's and ladies tour, and we couldn't participate at the time, but some manufacturers did. We did put money in, but it seems 15 years later you're there. And how is that work at Canada? How is your program unique as compared to, say, what's just going on in the United States or other countries?
Well, I think in Canada, as you know, Hash, we're a giant country with not a ton of people in it and not great weather. So if we didn't take our best players and, spend resources, time, give them opportunity in international competitions, we'd never have a player in the PGA Tour or the LPGA Tour. It's just, the places, the countries like the United States with great facilities, way more people, great weather. Similar with Australia in terms of the great facilities and the great weather and other countries, that we just wouldn't have many Canadians playing either professional or having success as professionals. So we know we've got to take our best young players. We got to invest in them, and we've also got to grow the base. No question there. But at the top, we also have to help some of those players who are good junior players become great amateur players, who are great amateur players, work them up into the top 100 in the world rankings, and then transition to the pro game. And then we've got to help them in the pro game. Like otherwise, I said, there would be very, very few Canadians playing the game at a high level.
So in our day, well, in my day, because you're much younger than me, but in my day, there was one guy going to college at University of Indiana, Craig Dearden. And then we had to follow his path. Yeah. He basically, some of the tournaments that he played in, we copied him. And then we had to figure it ourselves how to get access to colleges and speak for ourselves and go after those scholarships. There's a lot of Canadians today playing golf all over the world and primarily in the United States on scholarships. How has Team Canada helped them achieve that? And what's your role been in helping those players obtain those scholarships?
Well, I would say, it hasn't just been Golf Canada or Team Canada and the provincial golf associations. Honestly, it's been pioneers like you. I know in many areas, Hash, you have been a pioneer in just about a million different things as it relates to golf. But it's some of the older guys who took the chance and went down to play college golf and, put Canada on the map. And, what we've been able to do is we've been able to help direct our top players to some of the best programs in the U.S. and have success there, like a Jared Dutoit at Arizona State and like a Corey Connors and a Mackenzie Hughes and a Taylor Pendrith at Kent State. And so we've been able to, and a bunch of guys, Blair Hamilton at Houston and Alvin Choi at NC State. So the list goes on. We've really, and right now a hotbed is Nevada. Reno, University of Nevada at Reno. So we've got, I think 4 or 5 Canadians on that team and really some of our top Canadian prospects. So with some of those players going to the U.S., other players who maybe aren't quite as good or maybe as good but not on our national team are getting opportunities to play college golf at great programs in the U.S. and really take advantage of great coaching, great schedule, unreal facilities, tournaments. I mean, so we've been very fortunate there, and that's been, it's been something we've encouraged in Canada, whereas I think some of the other countries in the world have said, no, we want to keep our players back home and try and develop them outside of that. It's been part of our program. And then when they go down there, we want to support them in college. So I go meet with college coaches. I go watch our players play in tournaments, and my assistant coach, Andrew Parr, does as well. And we try and support them in that structure. And then we have them for 3 or 4 more months in the summer, and it's a lot more intensive then.
So I know Ryan's dying my colleague Ryan Rose is dying to get on the jump on the bit here to get on to talk about swing tips. My question to you is, how as a coach, you get a lot of players from all over Canada, all different swing types, training regularly with their own pros at their own courses, so on and so forth. How do you accommodate all the different swing types? I mean, what do you say to a guy who's hitting it really well, but just is flat out doing something that you've not seen win on the tour?
Wow. That's a real good question and kind of a deep one. But I would say, for the most part, I don't see a ton of guys with absolutely crazy stuff that, I don't see on the tour. Because, I do feel like tour players get it done in different ways. And, in college golf, they're getting it done a little bit in different ways. An example is a Matt Wolf or a Colin Morikawa. Those guys, they have different swings and different actions, but they both, the club interacts with the ball in a really nice, consistent fashion that allows them to have ball control and distance control and distance, which, where the game is going to. So for me, I try not, it's not about what it looks like. To me, it's about how it works and how it functions. If the right impact conditions are happening, if he's got distance with control and consistency, then I'm happy with that. And I like to test the crap out of my guys, quite frankly, before I get in there and start making a bunch of changes to make them look prettier. To me, it's about performance and helping them get better. And so I take my time. I don't feel the need to change anything the first day, the first minute, or show people how brilliant I am. I take time, I plan, I gather a lot of information, like tools, like with the body track and with the foresight and other radars and with K-Vest and stuff like that. I try and gather a ton of information and then build a plan where I see I can make an impact.
My problem with golf in Canada has been that they wait too long to adapt to the technology. In your case, you grab body track from day one, and I appreciate that. I will always remember you for that. No, I mean seriously. I bet you we had 700 golf pros in the United States using body track before we had 7 in Canada. And I understand a 10-to-1 ratio, but not a 100-to-1 ratio. Do you think Canada is just not adept to using technology? I'm not asking you to say anything bad against your peers, but it's irrefutable because we offered the PGA at Canada, and with no names being mentioned, an opportunity to use body track from the get-go. Yet only you and Tristan Malale, Corey Katouche, a couple guys in Manitoba took us up really soon. What's your thoughts on this? Is Canada ahead, or are they way behind in technology use?
That's kind of an interesting one, because I think there's hotbeds of very good coaches doing the right thing across Canada, but there's not as many certainly as there is in other areas in the world. Because again, like a big country with not many people in it, but maybe we're a little bit conservative. But you have to tell the story, Hash. You called me, I was looking for force plates. I was looking for something that I could, how I could understand how athletes were interacting with the ground during the golf swing. And Hash called me on the phone. I hadn't talked to him, but I've known him for years, and said, I've got this product, and send me a check, and I'll get you one. I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I sent the check like 15 minutes after I got on the phone with you. I really had no idea what I was buying. And you sent the product way before you got the check. So, and I was so thrilled with it because of the fact that it was mobile, the information we could learn about how golfers interacting with the ground during the golf swing at a really, reasonable cost. I was so stoked about it, but it was kind of an interesting story because literally that transaction happened in under 5 minutes. Check was on the way. Matt was on its way.
It was going like they cross each other. It was perfect. No, but I appreciate it. Now, I have one question before Ryan wants. He's got to jump in. I know he's just dying to ask you some swing technique questions, but I have 2 questions. One is personal, but I want Ryan to get in and involved because he's got some great ideas here too. But we're from a small community. I believe you grew up at Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
With Jimmy Doyle, one of those great time legends in Canadian golf, regardless of what anybody tells. I love Jimmy Doyle and friends with the whole family. But you grew up in a small community. You're a great player. You played on tour. You did your thing. What do you say to people in small rural areas like Antigonish, Nova Scotia, or Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island? Do they have a chance in hell of advancing their game, and B, like I see a lot of guys from rural Saskatchewan, Northern Ontario playing unbelievable golf when they get to your level. Why is that? Is it because they've got more time to play? What's access to courses? What's the deal here?
Yeah, I honestly think you nailed it right there. Like, I feel like those small rural communities where maybe the golf course isn't as in greatest shape, but they've got unreal access to it. They can play 36 holes a day or 45 holes a day compared to a big center like maybe in a Chicago or a Toronto or one of the Orlando, where they're having a hard time getting on the golf course. So I think that's number one. Access it trumps everything. And two, I actually think growing up in smaller areas where the courses aren't as good a shape, players learn to play from different lies. In Canada, you get terrible conditions. It could be 5 degrees Celsius out there and you're playing in a hard, huge wind, and it could be raining and snowing in the same day. And you're just happy to be playing because in a month and a half, there's going to be 2 feet of snow on the ground. And so I think that's another thing, playing in crappy conditions and bad golf course conditions also produces great players. So those are some of the things I think that are advantages, actually. And I truly believe that the best players come from those areas, and then they get great facilities and great golf courses. But before Rory was at, the best course in Ireland, he was at one of the, small rural courses that was in brutal shape, but he had great access to it. And it was very difficult. The conditions were bad. And that's how you get guys like Rory. And I even think in the same breath, Spieth and other players like that, they weren't really what I would classify as silver spooners or country clubbers for the most part. They became that after they became a really great player. So, and which is nice to have nice facilities. Let's face it. But first they got tough and they got really good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because in Canada, I mean, I know the guys growing up that were the best players in Canada, and all of them came from golf courses that were rural. I mean, they ended up at good places, but they all came from the breezy bends,
Yep.
sandy hooks.
Yep.
Dave Barr came from a small golf course. I forgot the name of it. Cowichan, I think it's called. And the girls too, same deal. They all came up from the small little rural courses where they had access, but playing on terrible conditions, slow greens. Yeah. And when we got to the fast greens, we thought, man, this is easy. This is
or good weather. Yeah. Or good weather, like, oh, this is going to be easy out here. I can't believe how nice it is.
Ryan, I know you got a lot of questions. Why don't you jump in here, pal?
So, that's an interesting, observation. I came to golf late in life. I mean, I didn't start playing golf until I was 22, and only because the guys that I worked with made me. I was a basketball and a tennis and a soccer player growing up. And what amazed me was that, you go to practice golf and you've got this massive expanse of a flat ground that's perfectly manicured, and you hit it into a soccer field. And, when we would play, basketball, practice had to be harder than the game, right? But all the good pros that I know who are worth their salt came from someplace like Fargo, North Dakota, where they had a shag bag and no driving range and a little 9-hole course. So on that, when you talk to parents or young up and coming golfers that want to be part of a better program, what do you do to keep them, what do you suggest at least to keep them off the range itself? Because the range is not golf. Yes, you can work on some block practice there, but how do you keep them off that perfectly manicured surface and teach them how to play the game?
Yeah, you touched on a ton of great things there, Ryan. Just on holding them accountable in their practice and getting them on the reality is like you said, the practice grounds doesn't mimic the game they play. Perfect golf balls, perfect lies to those targets that don't move. If you miss one, you've got another 150 Pro V1s sitting there to hit. So you need to get in the golf course and train, and that's I think. And the other thing you nailed there's kids need adversity. As a parent now, we want to shelter our kids from adversity because we had lots of it. So I don't want them to have to go through that. And that's exactly the opposite of what we should want for them. I want them to, my dad was old and he did a lot of things wrong, but I had a lot of respect for him. And, he was super old school, but he made me tougher. And I think, as soon as you get a little taste of a teeny bit of success, you want to make it easier for your kids. And so in practice, I'm trying to create adversity, situations where they're struggling, where they're getting super frustrated, where they're getting, wickedly pissed off. Nothing makes me happier than that. And in terms of parents and talking to players, I try and get them on the course playing. Again, when you have access, Ryan, you can get out there and play worse ball and take, instead of, an hour and 15 minutes to play 9 holes, it might take an hour and 45 because you're playing your worst shot out of the 2 shots every time. Or you're going to the very, very tips one day and playing, as long as it can be. But then the very next day, you're going right to the very front tee marker and trying to shoot 5, 6, 7, 8 under par, shoot as low as you possibly can. Or you're playing a 2-ball scramble with yourself, trying to shoot 10 or 12 under par through 18 holes. So you're trying to, stretch those limits. Like, oh yeah, why be 6 under when I could be 7 right now?
I like that. That's really interesting when you talk about the distance. I mean, especially as Americans, everything is bigger, better, longer. We have 7,700-yard golf courses, but they never take somebody up and put them on the very front of the tee box and say, take it as low as you can go. I mean, that's really interesting.
I've never seen actually, there's a golf course that Ryan and I went to in Florida called Bloomingdale's. They have the highest number of scratch golfers in the United States. That's their apparatus multi, but they have absolutely nobody on tour out of there because the course is so tough. They think that par is good.
Well, and I think that's the thing, Hash. Nowadays, par is not good in professional golf. If you're not shooting 25 under par for 4 days out there, you're getting, especially in the Corn Ferry Tour, you're getting lapped, or in mini tours, you're getting lapped. So you've got to break that barrier. Because when I played the Dakotas Tour 100 years ago, on the PGA Tour Canada 100 years ago, I get like 1 or 2 under and just grab onto the steering wheel as tight as I could and try and steer it in. And then I would get in, and Kenny Duke would be 9 under par, and I'd be like, I shot 1 under. What the hell am I doing the last 4 hours steering that 1 under in? And so I think we need to get our players as well, saying that, 2 under is a nice 9. 2 under is a nice stretch for 2 or 3 holes, but why be 2 when you can be 3? Why be 3 when you can be 4? Why be 4 when you can be 6? We've got to keep the foot down if you're going to win and make money in this game, and also break through that barrier that, I shot under par, that's a good game. Well, no, 1 under par. A player I coached shot 1 under par in the final round of the Heritage. He started in 8th and finished 22nd. So 1 under par was, he wasn't pleased with that.
It's funny. I had a conversation with Jay Haas right when he was going on the Champions Tour. And he said, 34. Every 9, I'm trying to shoot 34, shoot 68. And Webb Simpson just shot 22 under at Harbortown. It's a birdie fest out there at the highest level.
It is. Sorry. Go ahead, Ash.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it really is. And as you guys know, Ryan, on the Corn Ferry Tour, the PGA Tour, Canada, Latin America, China, in the mini tours, it's even like lower. Guys are shooting lower. I had a player, Jared Detois, our young pro squad, shot 59 in an Outlaw Tour event in February or March this year. I mean, I think there's something to that, having the ability to go low. Even if you have bad weeks, when you play great, you shoot low. That's how you make money in this game.
I gotta ask you, DI, proud of you, man. I was a swimmer as my second sport, but I was actually better naturally at it than golf, and I had a chance to go to the Olympics, but wasn't able to get there because I preferred to take the summers off in golf. Tell us what it was like to be at the first Olympics. I just got goosebumps, sir. I called you sir.
Yeah, no, I don't get that from you very often. But being at the Olympics in Rio was probably the highlight of my coaching career, or certainly in the top 3. It's something that I had my radar set out. Even almost 10 years before the Olympics even happened, I had a feeling that golf was going to get back in the Olympics, and I was a little bit involved on the inside in helping bring golf in a very, very tiny, small role in Canada back to the Olympics and presentation. So I was aware that we were trying to get golf back in the Olympics, and that was something I thought, hey, that'd be a real separator. How about being the first coach from Canada to coach in the Olympics in 100 years? We were, Ryan, the defending champions from 1904, I believe, the last time golf was in the Olympics. But Yeah, it was a real thrill to be there representing your country with guys who are unreal guys, and Brooke and Elena, who are great people on the women's side, and just seeing the golf course in Brazil, and just, it being part of the athletes village. And I know that after the final round of golf, I went to the 100-meter final and saw Usain Bolt win the 100-meter final, and Andre de Grasse, a Canadian, finished second. And that was actually probably the second highlight of my Olympics, maybe even more important than that, is during that 100-meter race, just before it, I got a phone call from a player I had coached for 10 years who had, as part of our junior team, part of our amateur team, our young pro squad, who won on the web.com tour that day, that Sunday, and earned his PGA Tour card. And he called me, it was Mackenzie Hughes, and he called me, he said, "Hey, DI, we've made it." And for me, being at the Olympics, watching the 100-meter final, but getting that phone call, a player you invest, 8, 9, 10 years in, a great friend, to finally achieve his lifelong goal to be a PGA Tour player, and as a coach, that was probably the highlight of the entire Olympics for me.
I had goosebumps. I almost cried there. That was so unbelievable. Thanks for sharing. I was going to ask you to give us a story. Nothing's going to top that ever. That's the best friggin' story I've ever heard in my life. I don't want this interview to stop, okay? Because that was just, I can't say it, over the top, man.
Honestly, you guys know what it's like to invest time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears in something you love, and coaching. That's something I love. And Mac and Corey Connors, another player I coached on the PGA Tour, but also a lot of other players who never quite made it, who are great amateurs and great pros. So when you have somebody get to the pinnacle of the game on the PGA Tour and call you just after it and say, "Hey, we did it," it's pretty special.
It's okay. So I gotta get out of this emotional state that I'm in. That's just too hard, man. And I don't. That was just okay. So in my day, Derek, I hit literally 600 to 800 balls a day, and my goal was 1,000. I want to hit 1,000 because that was the status quo back then. Nowadays, guys don't hit as many balls, and they're playing a hell of a lot better. What's the deal there?
Well, I think it's quality over quantity now, number one. So you've got to have a good intention. You want to hold yourself to an extremely high standard in your practice, and so you're trying to make a game like you're trying to put pressure on yourself, and so you can't do that for 1,000 balls. You can do that for a certain amount of your practice. And I'm not saying you don't have to work hard, because we all know you do need to work extremely hard. But I'd say we're getting quality over quantity in some cases. We're holding ourselves to a super high standard and measuring that. And then also we're doing stuff like Ryan said before the interview started. He's getting in the gym and taking care of his body and getting stronger and feeling good, so that the next day he's going to be able to perform at a high level and not be injured. So I think there's still a portion that you have to dig it out of the dirt, like Ben Hogan said, and Mo Norman, a Canadian legend, and guys like yourself, who are also a Canadian legend, they hit thousands of balls to have success. And I still think there's a portion that we need to do that. Otherwise, that's the entry. That's throwing your hat in the ring. But now it's also about working smarter too.
You've seen great players make it, and you've seen equally, if not greater, players not make it. What, in your opinion, has been the separator?
Hash putting me on the spot, making me think here.
You didn't think I was just give you some crappy questions?
I thought you were going to lob them over the net to me. So here's what I'd say. The one thing I think I noticed from the players that have made it, that I've been able to, play a small role in, and the ones who haven't, is it's not sexy, but it's the small little habits and routines that they have in their daily life that make an unreal difference when you just add good day on good day, good week on good week, good month on good week, month, and then good year on good year. So if I look at Corey Connors, there's, if I called him tonight at 9:05 to have a chat, I wouldn't get him, because every day at 9 o'clock he's in bed. His habits, his sleep habits are like an Olympic athlete. They're better than Olympic athletes. So he's using sleep as a weapon for his golf. And they're doing that. They're making those small habits or routines in every day of their life, the players that are having success, in my opinion, and they're building on them over time. And so if you had to really say what's the separator, I would say it's those small little, it's not sexy, it's not all that flashy, you guys, but it's little habits and the routines that players have that they do, they're real loyal to, that make a big difference over time.
The when we were in someplace in Saskatchewan, where were we not too long ago? I forgot.
Oh, we were in Swift Current, weren't we?
Oh yeah, we're in Speedy Creek in Swift Current. Yeah, we're in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and I was really paid attention to your seminar because couple weeks before I had been with can't think of the fellow's name, was Speeds Cameron. Cameron was the coach. Cameron, is that Speeds, Jordan Speeds?
Oh yeah, Cameron McCormick.
Cameron McCormick.
Yeah,
and that's when Speeds was hot, and he was talking about nutrition, sleep, and all that. And then you laid it out. You had a complete cycle for your players of nutrition, training, key practice times, sleep, rest. And Ryan, you've talked about this with me a million times, where, the best players today, like I just got back from the UK at Justin's North Haunts, where Justin Rose, you grew up. And I heard he's got just like one of those guys, his routine is like 9:05. If he's at bed, forget it. Doesn't matter. Don't wake him up unless someone relative died. And I guess the point I'm going here is, what is of all the components the most important, be it training, be it mental habits, be it practice, be it rest, nutrition. I mean, it's pretty hard to get them all well balanced. How do you get there on your own?
Well, that's a tough question because I think it's highly individualized. Some players, and by the way, I got to see Rose at the Olympics firsthand on his preparation, and I was just amazed at how much time he spent in the gym prior to warming up before the round, and then after the round, his cool down in the gym. I was really impressed with that. And as a younger guy, that was 2016, and I hadn't been to 50 or 100 PGA Tour events. I was just like, wow, that's Stenson and Rose. They're doing something that is pretty impressive. But to your point, I would say it's highly individual to the athlete, Hash, and that's where a coach comes in. Some guys really need fitness and to get stronger and get more explosive, and they need to get more power. And this guy over here just needs to party a little bit less. He's doing everything right, but he needs to start getting to bed, and taking care of his body and maybe his nutrition a little bit. And this person over here, their putting isn't good enough. They need to make more putts inside of 10 feet. And then when they're on, they need to be good between 10 and 25 so they can win when they're on. And this person over there, their bunker play is not good enough. So I think it's just highly specific to the individual. But in general, I would say the best have really tight habits and routines.
It was a loose question. The one thing that's really happened in the last, like I always tell people, that hockey never grew until it went inside, and until the indoor rinks became, out there. Hockey was kind of a stagnant sport. And then what happened when I was a swimmer, Canada got really good at swimming fast because swimming was inside and you could train all year round. And golf in Canada, obviously we can't train all year round, but now we can with some of the technologies that we've got. So I used to just hit balls in the net, and it was just, you didn't know what the heck you were doing. And then you get out, you start the season, and you hit the first 10 that way, because you really weren't working on something. But now with the technology that's available, and BodyTrack's one of them, not to plug BodyTrack too hard, but I mean, do you think that golf going indoors is going to help Canadian golfers?
Absolutely. I think it's helping golfers across the world, never mind just Canada, and certainly even more in places like Canada where it's 6 months in the deep freeze, because you're hitting balls into a net or into a simulator, but you're getting great feedback now. You're getting feedback on how your body interacts with the ground during the golf swing. You're getting feedback on how the club's interacting with the ball, so you're getting exact yardages. You're getting great curve numbers. There's 3D technologies that are inexpensive. You're getting great information on how the club's moving, how the body's moving, and so before we just hit balls, and it was good for the time, but we just felt it. If it
Yeah.
felt good, we knew impact, location, contact was really important, but we didn't have anything else. We didn't, we were guessing at the yards. We had an idea, but now I think, and even you heard last week at Colonial, Rory stayed in a house that had a simulator in the basement, and after the first round, he wasn't happy with his play, went downstairs and hit a bunch of balls in the simulator, getting his wedge numbers, and the next day, I think he shot 63. Well, if it's good enough for Rory McIlroy to be hitting balls in a simulator inside out of the heat in Dallas, Texas, or Fort Worth, Texas, then certainly in Winnipeg or Montreal or Toronto, in Chicago, where it's cold in the winter, they're going to be taking advantage of those technologies and getting better.
We're Ryan and Ben and I, we're all working towards sort of using pressure mapping on a consumer level, or at least getting the technology also into golf hitting bays, so that people can go there and rent it.
Great idea.
Yeah,
Unreal.
I was gonna. There was actually a question. So, what do you think of it? I mean, if people had access to technology, yeah.
I was talking to Ben just briefly about that, and he kind of mentioned it last week, and I was just like, that is an unreal idea. People will rent, Foresight or TrackMan radars or Flight Scope radar, and they want 3D information, and they want information. I have a tablet, Holmore Putts, and they got Sam Putt Labs, and people want that technology, and this is a natural for it. Oh, here's how you're working. It works under the mat. And gives you information on your swing that's going to help you get way more consistent, help you get longer if that's what you want. And I think the consumer is going to just eat that up. They're going to love that.
Have you had, and thanks for that. That appreciated it. Have you had, like, serious question? Have you had any examples of your players where you've traced them out on Body Track, you've measured you've got their numbers on 3D, you've got them when they're playing well, and they're all of a sudden things are gone to heck in a handbasket, and just somehow their psyche's down and you can't get the communication. Have you ever had any instances that you can share with us where you've gone back to the technology and said, look, here's what you're not doing now, and then gotten them back quicker?
Yeah, I would say that's probably, it might be the number one use I use Body Track for, and some of the other technologies is benchmarking when my guys are playing great, when they're swinging great, when they're at their best. But I'll use a specific example with Corey Connors, who it's sexy to talk about him because people know him. He's a PGA Tour player, and he's one of the best ball strikers in the world as well. But with Corey, and Hash, I brought you in on this. I mean, I remember I was on the back of the range at Old Palm in West Palm Beach, Florida. I'm like, Hash, I don't know what this means. I'm going to send these right now. And you were super useful because I was like, well, no, he doesn't seem to be getting his pressure off his front foot. The mat's broken, I'm saying, right? I'm like, oh, your mat's broken. And Ash was like, no, he's not getting his pressure off his back foot. And I'm like, no, this is Corey Connors. He's one of the best. He's like, yeah, I don't care. So, with Corey, we do a simple drill. I hate to say how simple this is, as a result of lots of work on the Body Track, because it'll make me sound not that I'm smart, not that smart, or not that important. But the reality is, it's something that works great for him. Is he tries to get the pressure to the back foot early in the backswing, and he tries to get the pressure to the front foot early in the downswing. And when he does that, he just hits it better and better and better. And what can happen for Corey is, because he doesn't turn too much, it's a little bit of fake. It looks like he's getting the pressure back, but he's getting onto the front foot, and the pressure is staying there. And then in the downswing, he bounces back too much to hit it good and save it. And because he's got great hands, he still plays okay like that.
Yeah,
but when he's really getting pressure back and then pressure through, he hits it like he's a world-class ball striker. He's one of the, and so that simple drill has made the hugest difference for us in the last 3 or 4 years, I can say.
When we saw his trace at the range there, it was linear and it was beautiful. It's got to be one of the best stories in golf, whether you're an American or Canadian, doesn't matter. Not a full-time tour player, wins the last tournament in Houston, goes flies a private jet to Augusta, and Mr. Nicholas and Mr. Player are there to teeing off in front of him. I mean, and he gets to talk to two of the most, what can you say, legends ever in golf. I mean, I had probably had a heart attack, and I wouldn't have been able to take the first swing. But what a great story you have there with Corey Connors. And who else are you working with out there now?
Well, I work with a couple guys in the Corn Ferry Tour, Taylor Pendrith, and these guys are a part of our young pro squad. So great guys, Jared Detroit. Those are some of the up and comers. Stu McDonald, Mackenzie Hughes, and Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin. I don't coach anymore, but they've all come through our junior team, our national amateur team. Mackenzie actually came through our young pro squad. Nick and Adam we didn't have a young pro squad then. That was unfortunately, but I'm thrilled that they made great guys. So Adam Svensson, who's on the Corn Ferry Tour. He was on the PGA Tour last year. He'll be back on the PGA Tour next year. So those are some of the players that have come through our program. And certainly, you guys, I'm not going to stand here and take the credit for it. All the credit goes to the player. Derek Ingram just has been fortunate enough to be a small role in that on their way up, and tried to, to be a great coach and a great mentor for them. But I believe it's all about the athlete, and they get the credit for that. And I just I try and get results and keep my mouth shut.
Well said. Ryan, I'm sure you got a couple questions there.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. Canadians that have made it to the top level have always been some of the best ball strikers in the world, whether it's now with Adam Hadwin or Corey Connors, or, we want to take it back to, of course, the great Mo Norman, or Knudsen,
Yeah.
Some of these guys, absolutely world renowned. But they all did it a little differently, right? People are individuals. And especially when you look at the top, let's just say the top 3 or 4 players in the world right now, whether it's Dustin Johnson or Brooks Koepka or Rory McIlroy, and you look at their swings, and I don't think any of them fit into some, quote, textbook, right? And I've had a lot of conversations with pros, and it seems to be that the best players sort of eschew or put to the side the golf media, right? What's out in the magazine or the popular conceptions about swing. Can you maybe give us a clue into some things that are sort of widely held beliefs, whether it's keep your head down, keep your left arm straight, or worrying about things in the backswing that are just simply not the case when it comes to people that do this really, really well?
Yeah, it's interesting, Ryan, because anything can work for some people, because athletes are athletes, right? But it's so unique in how players generate power, and they bring a different skill set. They bring sizes, flexibility, strength, and athleticism to the table, and now they're meshing it into a great golf swing. I mean, even it would be a shame if we had a golf conversation this week and didn't even mention Bryson DeChambeau. It's just with what's going on in the world. So, but it's not a position game anymore. Oh, I'm trying to put the club in this position, or I'm trying to have the club travel in this position on the way back and have it travel in this position on the way down. Obviously, there's a few things we want. We want that club, generally speaking, to shallow a little bit earlier in the downswing, but it doesn't mean we haven't. Jack Nicklaus, the greatest player of all time, didn't shallow it late and was just a great athlete. So it's unique in how you can get the game, how you can swing and play and be a great ball striker with doing it slightly different. But let's see if we can throw a couple of misconceptions out that are absolute garbage. Well, keeping your head still is one of them for sure, because I think a lot of guys would break their neck. I mean, David Duval was the #1 player in the world, and his eyes never even saw the ball. Matter of fact, I feel like that's the modern golf swing 10 or 15 years ago. His body was rotating so much that and it was opening to the target so much. Now it's very fashionable to do that. Back then, there wasn't a ton of people, Lee Trevino,
Right.
And David Duval, and Annika Sorenstam on the LPGA Tour. So that's one, keeping your head down. Keeping the left armor straight is, if you look at Phil, I mean, a lot of guys, and actually an impact too. If you're watching guys like Brooks Koepka, there's a fair amount of, in keeping that arm bent, but the face really stable and rotating through, but there's no arm straight. Now, obviously, in general, we like that, but can people work around that? For sure. What else? I just think that people sometimes think, oh, tour players, they all play a draw or all play a fade. But I think the answer to that question is yes. They all play.
Yeah.
They play, depending on the player, they play both. Rory plays a draw for the most part. Dustin hits a really, doesn't hit draws. He hits a cut. If it's a draw shot, he's going to hit a baby cut. And so I think those things you have to, and that's why, and the game can be done in different ways. You look at Zach Johnson; he's not overpowering courses; he's seducing courses. And every shot for Zach Johnson is a 5 or 10 yard draw. If it's a cut shot, it's a small draw. He's not hitting a cut. So I think those are some of the misconceptions on tour. It is trending, Ryan, towards a power game, as we're all seeing, and it'll be interesting to see how the PGA Tour reacts to that, and if they try and pull that back, and have a few more courses like Harbour Town and Colonial in the mix, or if they're going to let the guys just become in 10 years really looking like the long drive circuit. It'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially when we talk about Mr. DeChambeau, who I was lucky enough to spend a day with. He and both Chris Como and Mike Shy before the COVID thing came down. And talk about three really, really bright guys. And this was right as Bryson was starting to embark on his beef up procedure. And his, major coach, Mike Shy, is a big body track user, friend, and everything else. But if you look at his swing, yes, there are some different things, but almost that entire 3 months was all spent on his ground force interaction. Now he was with Mike, he's using body track. When he's with Chris, he's using other competitor products. But that really is, besides the beef up, how he generated himself from being negative strokes gained off the tee to now number 1 strokes gained off the tee.
Well, yeah, and I saw that lead leg action in the last 2 weeks, and I was like, wow, posting off it and jumping off it, and even the foot kind of twisting with the driver, the toe pointing at the target. I'm like, whoa, that's something I don't see too often in golf. But I'm only speculating here, Ryan, but I imagine that was about saving the knee because he's generating so much force, and if you kept your foot fairly just slightly ducked out and had that much jumping off, then maybe there would be a lot more pressure on the knee and the ankle and a possibility for injury. But, and Bryson's swing, let's face it, I know his coach a little bit from being out on tour, and great guy and super smart. It's not one of those that you see from everybody. It's, it's fairly, he gets the hands quite high, and it's almost like he's, there's not a lot of wrist action or hinging, early in the backswing, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of down cock on the way down, and it's very powerful. And so again, and one thing I love about Bryson is he's the one guy out there who doesn't care at all about what people think about him at all. He's going to do it his way, and he's got a plan for himself, and he's executing that plan. He's really, really smart, and he's got a great team around him. Some people with such a giant team, they might not be as successful, but it works for him for sure.
Is the entire tour now all about micro bubbles? I mean, we live in the society where we can bubble up with, I can bubble with your family. I guess it's a bad example, but when I'm out there, I haven't been out there in a little while, but when I was out there getting data for body track with Ryan and other pros, the one thing that I noticed is that the player, caddy, coach, and maybe someone else, and they don't give a heck what's going on at all relative except to them. And I think you have to be, I guess the question is golf a selfish game?
Yeah. Like golf, the game of golf in general, the one we all enjoy and love, is not a selfish game. But at the highest level on the PGA Tour and even in amateur golf, players need to be a little bit selfish with their time because they need to get their work in. It doesn't mean there's not unreal guys out there like a George Spieth or Corey or Mac or other guys who are just super great guys, but you need to be selfish with your time and get your work done. And they do have, for us, it's about becoming the best version of you and really focusing on becoming the best version of Corey or Mac or whatever, and doing those things. And so It is an interesting, like the PGA Tour is a bit of a different animal than golf in general. Golf in general, I think, is a very inclusionary game, or moving there, or trying to get there. But it's not selfish. It's about friendships and spending time outside with other friends and loving the game and playing the game. But in golf, the PGA Tour is about performance and getting results. It's really about that.
What do you think of? Okay, so this is more of an athletic question as athleticism relates to golf. And speaking of time, I appreciate all that you've given us. Maybe if I have 3 or 4 more questions, would that be okay, Derek?
Yeah, perfect. Love it.
Ryan, you came for a couple questions, but I have a legitimate question, Derek Ingram, Canada's Olympic golf coach. So you have some players that all year have done their deal. They've improved their performance at a very, very high level, and they're going to nationals. They're going to the national championship, National Canadian Junior Championship. How do you back them off, or do they go full tilt right into that tournament? And I know it's different for everybody, but what do you see as trends-wise to prepare 2 weeks, 3 weeks as you're getting closer to the major event? What do you start doing with your players to get them ready emotionally, physically? Can you share some of your thoughts there for me?
Well, one thing, Ash, from the swing world, you'd probably be aware of this, and people who are running, the word tapering, which for golf, we don't really taper that much. But I think the best in the world are starting to be aware of how much their workload is leading up into those major tournaments and trying to get it right, as opposed to overworking. It's very rare that golfers underwork, but most guys will overwork, especially juniors. And so just being aware of, hey, like we talked about earlier, super high quality, maybe a little less quantity. And let's really ramp up the intensity, not for 100% of the practice session, but certainly some of the practice session, 50%. Want to ramp up the intensity and really have meaning. And so, we're measuring it, we're testing it, we're holding yourself to a huge standard. Like someone said earlier in the call, you guys, the practice, I think it was you, Ryan, said, the practice needs to be way harder than the competition. So even if you have a letdown in competition, you're still playing well. And so that's some of the things that we talk about with our guys on our amateur team is, yeah, we got to work hard, but your sleep needs to be really on point. You need to be taking care of your fitness as well. Your nutrition's super important. We want to game plan early so we're not rushing around when we get there and panicking and having to, work on my yards book until 2 or 3 in the morning. So it's some of those small, tiny things that can make a big difference. And then being aware as we narrow down and get closer to the event, being aware of the stuff that you do when you play your best golf. What are those 2 or 3 or 4 keys? Could be technical keys, could be mental keys, or could be a blend of both. But what are those 2 or 3 or 4 keys that I'm going to focus on? And make sure those are jotted down in your yards book or in a cue card in your pocket. And I guess possibly one of the last things is just having a refocusing plan. I needed it there myself, boys, almost fell asleep. But having a refocusing plan for when things don't go as planned, because there are going to be